Yes, we are tested positive. We do have COVID. So welcome everybody to this, like, picture-wise boring, but information-wise hopefully interesting vlog. And I will tell you about our time with COVID. So there's quite a lot to tell now, because since I had contact with the COVID person, there's a lot to tell because since I had contact with the COVID person, it has been 3 weeks now. So 2 weeks ago we were at the testing station. 1 week ago my husband already had symptoms too. Like, he was fine when we went testing, but a couple of days later he got symptoms. Now I'm almost fine, but he still has symptoms. So first of all, let me give you a short overview over what has happened the last couple of weeks. And there are already 2 previous vlogs where I explain a little bit more about that. Quarantine for us started basically, like, officially a day before we got tested, but we have been in quarantine for almost a week by then, because we thought it's better if we just simply stay out of people's way, not to endanger anybody. And I think that was a good decision, because in the end, I was tested positive. Now it's interesting, Chris was tested negative, so his immune system first of all reacted pretty good to the COVID virus. But after a couple of days after the test, he got symptoms too. And I believe it's COVID, because what else should it be, you know? There were no viruses from anywhere else or anything else we could have gotten because of the quarantine we were in, or we still are in, but we were in at that time. So the next small question I can answer is about work. Chris at the beginning worked, and after a couple of days, probably even after 1.5 weeks if I remember right, he decided to take a couple of days off because his symptoms got worse. I'm not working at the moment, which is good. In terms of, I could rest more or less as much as I wanted, but I still made some of the videos, like 3 or 4 probably, but that was not a big deal. Like, I would sit and cut, then I would take the laptop eventually to bed and cut there. So I was basically fine. I was wrapped in blankets all the time with a heating bottle and with tons of warm water. So why I said I could rest mostly was not only because I wanted to cut videos for YouTube, but also Chris and I, we have this agreement that most of the household is on my terms, or on my behalf, which is okay because right now I don't work, so I have time to take care of everything. And he was still working when I already had symptoms and felt kind of bad because I felt sick. But I still cooked. But now here is the nice life hack that I could just use, that I was very happy about, that it was there that way at the moment. I would literally just go check the freezer for any pre-cooked vegetables, which I do not have to cut anymore. I didn't have to put any spices or herbs or anything on because it's all prepared. I just had to put it either in the oven or into a pan or a pot. Cook it or bake it or fry it, whatever. Have some, for us, either gluten-free pasta or rice with it, or maybe potatoes, but that's something you put it in a pot, you let it cook, and that's it, basically, you know. So I didn't have to do a lot of work. I didn't have to cut a lot, I didn't have to spice it, as I said. And in the end, I only had to wash 1 or 2 pots, and the rest went into the dishwasher, which was like helpful for me in this state of not being on top of the world. So far, so good. I did end up emptying the freezer of all of my prepared, I think more or less of all my prepared stuff for when I either do not have time because we have appointments to cook, or for when I'm a little bit lazy or weaker when I have my period, for example. It's just nice to have, actually. And once I'm back on track, like I almost am back to 100%. It'll take me a few more days to just gain more strength, find back into a natural rhythm of doing some yoga and some sports, and then I'll back on track. And then I will probably, no, I'm pretty sure then I will definitely prepare more of this nice vegetables, cooked, put to the freezer for whenever, because it's just super, super helpful. Now with the cooking, there came one really weird thing. I discovered it, I think maybe one day earlier, but it started when Chris already had symptoms, so with him it came pretty quickly after I had it. I stopped smelling, and with stopping to smell, I of course stopped tasting. So there was this goat cheese in our fridge. It's like a roll of goat cheese, and the longer you have it there, the more intense the taste gets. And you probably all know goat cheese and goat milk has this goat taste, and you either like it or hate it. I like it if it's not too intense, but in this case, I knew the roll had been in the freezer for a little bit longer. I knew it was still good, but it must have been definitely more intense from the taste and the smell, and I didn't smell it, and I did not taste it at all. So I had a cracker with this cheese, and the only thing I could taste was taste. It's not tasting, but it's like, that's the only way I could describe it. It was yet crunchy and creamy and a little bit cold. That was it. And that lasted for, I think, more than a week. And we started to get a little bit worried about that. But about worries and fears, I'll talk later this video. Chris actually made a funny joke. I don't know if it's a funny joke, but I loved it in that moment. He said, well, now that we don't taste and smell, come on, let's get out all the healthy stuff and food we have here that we don't want to eat usually, or he doesn't want to eat usually. Let's just eat it because we don't taste, we don't smell. So the probably hardest one is this powder I have. It's algae powder, it's spirulina. And it does taste a little bit like fish, like algae, like the ocean or whatever. It's algae. And I usually put that in my porridge or my muesli. And I sometimes sneak a little bit into Chris's muesli because I think it's healthy. And so at that time where we didn't smell and taste, we were like, yeah, let's just put it in. It's good. Let's get healthy. And at least this little joke cheered us up for like a little time. That was nice. So next point. We did have to order food, but that's basically no problem. You have a lot of food delivery companies who deliver food. Let's put it that way. And with some of them, you can either tell them when you order, yes, we're in quarantine, or they call you anyway and then you tell the driver, hey, I'm in quarantine. And that was not a big problem because quarantine in Czech is karanténě, and przed dveře is in front of the door or something like that. That's what I said. So at the end he did understand me. I didn't always understand them, but it worked out every time. Like they would just put down the bags or whatever and then they would leave because we've already paid online. That was pretty good. It's also pretty helpful. If you've seen my last video, we have the store and there is glass, like part of it. And so I could see them, and to one or two I think I only pointed downwards so they knew, yeah, they're gonna put it down. They left. I waited until they were gone and then I could open the door. I always wore a mask going through the house here. We have 4 apartments in this house and I have to go down. I'm the 3rd apartment, counted from bottom to top. And I was simply lucky that there were no neighbors coming or leaving in that moment when I went down to get the food. So I noticed with our cats as our next topic to talk about that it was really weird. Like we have Rusty, this black old grandpa cat. We love him so much. He's so old. He's 17, 18, something like that. He loves to crawl underneath. He loves to crawl into the sheets and cuddle up underneath our sheets and blankets. Since I went to bed and got out of bed and went back to bed after eating or whatever quite often these days because I wanted to rest, I would always wake him up either by lifting the blankets and disturbing him, or he would have like just come underneath the blankets, and then I would leave and disturb him. And it was really weird because he had a completely different rhythm, and it took us more than a week to find this rhythm where he would be less disturbed than in the beginning, but it worked out eventually. And Maneki Neko, I felt so sorry for her. She wanted to play. All the time she would give me this look with her big eyes, telling me she doesn't know where to put her energy. And then there's Cleopatrina, our black and white cat. And she basically only snuggled up wherever she found a spot to just rest. I believe you want to know about the symptoms. And before I talk about symptoms, I want to talk about the strength level beforehand. It was really confusing because when I have the flu, I'm probably not at work, and then I would be in bed, and 3 days of 5 would be like really weak for me, and the other 2 would be like still weak, and then I would be almost back on track, and it would be fairly quick, which is okay. So with COVID, it was different. Like, I felt warm and very cold, and a little warm again and very cold, and a little warm again and very cold, and every time I felt warm, I had this mini energy boost where I could sit and cut a little bit or cook a little bit, but once that was gone, I fell into this hole of weakness again. And I couldn't tell when it would be there or when I would have strength or whatever. It was totally different every day, basically. And it did take me 2 weeks to get to a point where I say, okay, I'm in the last, whatever, 10% of recovering or something. I had a super bad throat ache. This is why I made the video with the honey and the pepper, how you naturally cure your throat ache. I had sometimes like very dry lips, even though I was drinking 4 to 5 liters a day. In Germany, I had herpes a lot. If it was herpes, the doctors couldn't really tell me if it was herpes or something else. It looked like herpes and it hurt like herpes, and it was ugly like herpes. So I just call it herpes. And I started to get that, and it was so crazy because you couldn't see it, but I could feel it, so my lips were itching, and I really had to hold back to not bite my lips the entire time, because if I would have done that, it would have probably come out or whatever. I didn't cough a lot. Chris was coughing more than me, definitely, but I did cough a little bit. My nose was, like, one hole was closed completely a lot, or only half open or something. And sometimes during the day, I just have a lot of snot coming out of my nose. I had constant headache, honestly, constant headache, and this is nothing surprising. I've heard that a lot, a crazy lot. And I didn't take pain medicine because that doesn't really help, and I did not want to take so much pain medicine that I would be knocked out by the pain medicine. So I just lived with it. And my body was aching too, but I mean, it's kind of expectable too. Oh yeah, that was something that happened to me too. Not only my lips got very dry, but my fingers got very dry around the nails. So eventually they would burst and bleed a little bit. That's healable. And it seems to be a lot better already. I did not really have a lot of super harsh symptoms or something, but they were all there. And honestly, it was more than if I would have had the flu, because if I've had the flu, it's literally usually only my nose and my body aches a little bit, and that's it. I've never had throat ache that bad. And I've never had flu with headache that bad. So these were my symptoms. Now, Chris was a little bit different. I did not have fever because I just never get fever somehow. It's just how it is. But Chris did. So his first symptoms were also running nose, coughing, a little bit throat ache at first. His throat ache was better than mine in the end, but it was still there. And then he also had this, he was cold and he was warm, he was cold and he was warm, but he also had fever. Like one day he would have fever going up and down, the next day he would be fine. The other day after that he would have fever up and down again, and then he would be fine. So it was, again, non-predictable what would happen, and this is what makes it so weird. And he kept telling me that he was breathing super short, and I could hear that his breathing was not good. And I had that too. I actually forgot that I had that too, the short breathing, but I know a couple of yoga exercises which I just did to breathe into your stomach, to your sides, to your chest, and then up to your, how are they called, just up here, to keep your lung open and keep the transport system of everything that has to go in and out of the lungs going a lot. And I think that helped me, because with me it stopped after a week that I felt that I didn't get as much air as I needed. So with Chris it didn't. It's still there so far. And then after 1.5 weeks, something like that, he started to have rash, like red spots. First on his face and his elbow and his knee and his hands. And he was like, oh, what is this? So we changed bed sheets because we thought, oh, maybe he was allergic to something or whatever. It got better. The next day it got worse. Then it got better. Then it got really worse. That was Sunday. So Sunday evening it was so bad. It was all over his body in the end on Sunday at 8 at night, basically at 8 p.m. that we decided to try to call. First of all, we called the hospital. They didn't speak English, so we called another hospital, not in our town. They also barely spoke English. They referred us to call an ambulance. We tried that. They didn't speak English, so they referred us to call the police, where they have English and German support. So we called them, so they tried to organize an ambulance for us. Then they called us back saying the ambulance won't come for these kind of symptoms. If he was having more troubles breathing, they would have come to get him to the hospital, but not for rash. Okay, fine. So we waited till the next day, so it was again better. Until that day, we did not have a doctor. So then we had to find a doctor because we needed to sign Chris off of work. And that took us a couple of calls and nerves. But finally we found a really cool doctor. She just signed the paper that Chris is free from work for a couple of days until he checks in again, not having any symptoms anymore, to then end his prescription. So basically we will have to call in once his work disability is no longer needed. He also had a lot of headaches, body ache as well. Chris also didn't have a depression. Talking about fear, there are a couple of things which are really weird. I think this taste thing was the first time where we really both got scared in a way that we thought, what if this will never return? What if for the rest of our lives will not taste anymore? Can you imagine this? If you didn't have it, can you even imagine not tasting anything? Like you literally choose something and just do not taste it. You can't even, I can't even explain that. Like if someone would have said that to me, trying to imagine you can't taste, I would be like, yeah, I don't know, because the brain tries to switch and tries to put what you feel into taste. So this is why we came up with, oh, it's creamy, or oh, it's spongy, or oh, it's wet. It's warm, it's cold. But that's not gonna be good for the rest of your life, you know? I wasn't too worried about me having COVID because it was without fever and I knew the headache was okay. And yes, I was so tired, but I was not depressed. Like I did not have the best mood. No, I didn't. But depression is more than what I experienced. I usually only was in a kind of a bad mood, which was okay. I was sick. And so far, I think I'm fine. I won't have one. But there are people who struggle with that, definitely. I do not feel super awake, but I also don't feel super tired anymore. So I'm kind of relieved for myself that I'm pretty okay. The thing that did bother me was Chris's uncontrolled fever. Seeing him suffer more than me, of course, makes me worry, because it should be like fine, but if he has more than me, how much more will it be? It's so uncontrollable. I never know what to expect with him. Like, will he wake up tomorrow with red all over his body body again or not. And if you have the rash, it could mean that one organ is not working properly. It could mean, it doesn't have to, but it could mean, you know. So I just really hope he'll be fine. There are other people who have this thing with their hands. I don't know if feet as well, but with their hands, that they feel like they're as if they fell asleep. Do you know what that is? Like little, it's just like little needle pinches, but not very hard. Like when you don't have blood flow and all of a sudden it comes back or something like that. And the creepiest part for me was when Chris told me, please call an ambulance. But then they basically told us to wait, and if it's still bad the next day, we should go to the hospital, and there is a COVID station where you can get treatment, especially for whatever you need for COVID. So once we heard that, we didn't feel as bad as we felt before. It's still not very funny, honestly. Quarantine for us is okay. Like, we do miss to go outside. There were a lot of sunny days, and I would try to sit in the sun as much as I could sit, enjoying the warmth of the sunshine. I mean, the one positive thing I can say about that is, or the one positive thing I could see for myself was, I could take it as a kind of a break. Like, I did not have to excuse to anybody to not be on the phone. I just simply did not grab the phone when I didn't feel like. Chris does feel better now, so we did not have to go to the hospital. We will also have another check-in with the doctor, and she can help us with anything we have to know or we have to do so far. And at this point, I want to say thank you to all the helpers who helped me try to find addresses and contact, especially to Czech K. She has her podcast, and I will put the description to the interview she did with me in the description below. So maybe if you haven't seen that yet, you want to click it and watch it, because we had a lot of fun doing that. So how did this actually happen? There was one family, and they were in quarantine a couple of weeks or months ago, and then they were in quarantine again, and they talked to the person who then helped me with the car at the car service center. So I think the person who talked to the person who helped me, her child or something, was in quarantine, and she was fed up with the quarantine, and she was outside, so they were talking outside. Which is like, yeah, okay, it should be okay, but no, it's probably not okay, because the viruses can go anywhere and be everywhere. And a couple of days later, the person who helped me was still without symptoms, so that person thought it's fine. One day later, the symptoms started. They got tested, like the person and the entire family got tested. The person was positive, told me. I put myself into my own quarantine, including my husband. A couple of days later, health ministry called, and so on and so on. And from there, you know the story. So do not underestimate that, honestly. I mean, yes, there are people who are lucky who only have the mild version we had, but I still think it's nastier than the flu, so why would you risk having it when you can get like vaccine, or you get the same thing I have now, antibodies. That's it in the end. The thing about the vaccine is the COVID virus is a virus that looks like it has a crown on the top, and there are more than one COVID viruses. So there is one bad disease for cats, which is from this COVID virus family as well. So they did not just start doing research on this virus. There is already years and years of research on this virus, probably not a lot, because they never thought it was super necessary, because it was not a pandemic situation so far, but there is research. So it's nothing new as everybody is afraid of. That's just not true. We only hear about it now because now it's a threat to the entire world. And no matter if you are bored of quarantine or whatever, stay in quarantine. That's why it's there for, you know? And in the end, it reflects all back to you. The more we stick to the rules, literally every single rule, not meeting people, not spreading anything, just keep stuff to ourselves right now, the faster we are through. And it's not, oh, the government does stupid things. No, every single person of us could literally just slow down, have even less contacts, wear these damn masks over the nose, and just help prevent spreading it. And the less it spreads, the faster it's gonna be gone. That simple. So I hope you're all healthy. It's no fun, just don't get it. Take care of you and others. And have a good week, and I see you very soon. And maybe we're out of quarantine and can show you some nice stuff, or I'll cook something for you, or I don't know, I'll come up with something. Definitely. Have a good time. Bye bye. So first of all, let me give you a short food delivery. I wanted to say systems. Is systems the right word? Painted. Chris also didn't have log with. Hey Siri, stop.